Michael Hammond here for your Monday morning fuel up. It is September 25th. Hope all of you guys had a great weekend. I had an awesome weekend. My daughter was in from out of town. We just had so much quality time, got to hang out, got to go to a number of her favorite places, restaurants, went to the cider mill. We had gorgeous weather in Michigan, so got to the cider mill, got some cider mill donuts, just had a wonderful time with her, quality family time. It was so nice to have her in town. So I hope all of you guys had a fantastic weekend. We also had a big football game, and unfortunately, my team lost on the last play. Very frustrating, and you can point to a number of things they could have done or should have done and what they needed to do to win the game. But at the end of the day, they didn't win the game. That's plain and simple. And so what I want to talk about today is, we always talk about on the weekends, it's time to think, it's time to ponder, get some reading done, listen to some podcasts. And as I go back and look at some of the conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks, there's still a lot of frustration with people being able to sell and close deals. Whether you're a lender trying to get more borrowers and deals closed, or whether you're a vendor trying to get the lenders across the finish line. And I think one of the biggest challenges is everyone has to realize right now in today's market, their number one competitor is status quo. What do I mean by that? It's people who will look, they'll talk, they'll kick the tires, but at the end of the day, they're not quite ready to pull the trigger. First thing that tells me is we haven't established and built enough value. So let's go back to the football game. And what happens, you lose a tough game like that on the last play of the game, and there's two ways that you can go, and we'll see which route my team goes this coming week. They've got another tough game against an undefeated opponent. You can either start pointing the fingers in the blame game. Oh, if that guy would have intercepted that pass, the game would have been over. Boy, if the offensive would have just run out the clock, that would have been great. If you wouldn't have gone into a prevent defense, that would have done it. How the hell can't you have 11 guys on the field at the end of the game and the most important play of the game? And on and on and on. Accountability is important. Blaming is the death of anything moving forward. So the two options are either you can own it, be accountable, and learn from it, and internalize, what do I need to do better? What can I do to get better, to make improvements so that we're ready and prepared for the next game? Same thing applies to the mortgage industry. As you guys are battling status quo and battling closing deals, what happens? We lose a deal, or it kind of fades, or we kind of get ghosted a little, and what do? We move on to the next one. I understand pipeline management, and you don't want a lot of fluff in your pipeline. Stop. There's legitimate deals that are moving forward. Great. The other deals, though, what we have a huge propensity to do in the mortgage industry, just like the blame game, if marketing would have done this, if somebody would have done that, if our product would have done this, and then after all of that blame, we just move on to the next deal instead of, what can I do to learn from it? How can I get better? How can I add more value? And most importantly, how do I continue to foster a relationship with them? Because especially in a status quo market, if you maintain that relationship, that when the conditions change, when the timing is right, you're there to get the deal. But you know what happens to most vendors? You know what happens to most loan officers? They've already moved on. They're not communicating with the person. They're not adding any value. They weren't interested in building a relationship. They were only focused on that transaction, and they lose. Not only do they lose that original deal, they don't get any of their future business. And that's what happens in the game of football too. If the blame game happens with my team this week, if they're disgruntled, if people are complaining, if the second and third stringers are complaining, why didn't I play? I would have made that play. If the coach would have called a better call, blah, 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 blah. If all of that happens, guess what? You just let that team beat you 2 weeks in a row, because you're going to lose the next week. If you stay focused and learn from that, how can we do better discovery, right? So when we're trying to get a deal and it's not moving forward, or they decided not to do anything right now, first thing we have to always do is always be adding value. It's not always be closing. It's Let's always be adding value. So go out there this week, no matter what conditions you're in, no matter if you got the big deal, didn't get the big deal, fighting to get another deal. Always be focused on adding value and fostering and growing relationships. And at the end of the day, you're going to continue to win. Go out there and have an amazingly blessed week.